Hey everyone, what's good? Welcome to my video covering details on all of the primary attributes in Morrowind. Now this is intended as a supplementary video to my thorough character creation guide, but there's plenty of information here that can be useful in its own right. I'll be running down the attributes in the order that they appear on the in-game character sheet. Timestamps will be in the description if you want. Before we get started, we're going to cover our derived stats that tie directly into many of the primary attributes. You'll have a better idea of what I mean later on when they're brought up, and you'll be more aware of the formulae involved in determining their amounts. First is health. It's pretty self-explanatory, so we're just going to cover a few of the formulae involved. The first being how your starting health is determined right out of the gate. Your starting health is equal to the sum of half of your endurance and half of your strength. Afterwards, any gains to your max health is derived from just your endurance attribute, not your strength. Whenever your character rests to level up, your max health will increase by your base endurance divided by 10, or 10% of your base endurance. We'll cover some key minutiae to this in the endurance section. The next derived stat is Magicka, which is used for casting spells. Your total Magicka is determined by multiplying your intelligence attribute by whatever your Magicka multiplier is. By default, you don't have a Magicka multiplier, so it's just 1. This is changed by your choices in race and birth sign. Third is fatigue. If you've only ever played Skyrim, you should take note that Morrowind's fatigue mechanic worked significantly differently from Skyrim's stamina mechanic. Fatigue determines the success rate of nearly all the dice roll actions your character performs in-game. This includes, but isn't limited to, melee swing accuracy, landing hits with crossbow, success or failure when casting spells, lockpicking, evading incoming weapon attacks, and even your success at haggling while bartering. It's extremely important to remember that these success and failure rates only account for the percentage of your current fatigue relative to your maximum. This means that although it takes longer to fully exhaust, a fatigue gauge of 100 out of 300 maximum is going to yield worse results than a fatigue gauge that's sitting at 75 out of 100 maximum. Anyways, the formula for your max fatigue is the sum of your strength, willpower, agility, and endurance attributes. The last derived stat is your character's encumbrance. This is the weight limit for how much you can carry. Your max encumbrance is always your strength multiplied by 5. Because of enchanting and magicka costs, this means you'll get more encumbrance out of using fortify strength effects than you would using a feather effect. It's also worth noting that your current encumbrance relative to your max encumbrance also affects your character's movement speed. So what this means is that a character with 100 out of 200 max encumbrance is going to move at a faster rate than a character with 300 out of 400 max encumbrance. Mind you, this is all assuming that all other stats like speed and athletics are constant between them both. In a situation like this, a feather effect can result in your character moving faster, albeit you'll have a lower capacity for encumbrance and carrying stuff. At last, we can move on to the actual primary attributes. First on the list is strength. Strength takes part in determining your character's damage output if you're using weapons. This even includes ranged weapons like crossbows and throwing darts. On screen now is the formula used for the damage output of a character using a weapon. Now you'll notice the strength modifier in there. The strength modifier starts from 50, meaning that a character with 50 strength will deal 100% expected damage and receive no benefit or reduction from strength. Each point of strength from 50 will raise or lower the expected damage modifier by 1%. So this means that a character with 75 strength has a 125% modifier, and a character with 25 strength has a 75% modifier, meaning they do less damage. As mentioned in their respective derived stats sections, strength also affects your starting health, your max fatigue, and your encumbrance. Finally, strength also affects the rate at which your weapons degrade and need to be repaired. Realistically, this only becomes a factor at extreme levels of strength far beyond 100, usually reached through intense enchanting and exploit, modding, and so forth. The second primary attribute is intelligence. On the surface, intelligence looks like a pretty conventional attribute, in that it and your Magicka multiplier directly correlate to your maximum Magicka. However, the intelligence attribute also amplifies your results in alchemy and enchanting, in addition to their respective skills. The idea is to start with a solid foundation of a combination of high or maxed out alchemy, intelligence, and luck. Then, you'd create a strong Fortify Intelligence potion, drink that potion, and then use your newly fortified intelligence to create another better Fortify Intelligence potion. You'd keep doing this until you reach absurd levels of intelligence, and then go on to create powerful potions or enchantments that can easily surpass some of the effects of even the rarest artifacts you'll find in the game. Do this at your own discretion, however, as depending on your computer, you can easily crash your game with certain effects if you go overboard. Even having ludicrously high stats can crash the game engine. I think the upper limits are around 50,000 plus intelligence and 3,000 plus luck? Don't quote me on that. The third primary attribute we'll be covering is Willpower. This one is critical to characters who intend on using spell casting, especially in combat. In addition to the levels of their respective skills, luck, and fatigue levels, spells rely on willpower when determining success and failure rates for casting. The formula used for this is a bit lengthy, but I'll have it on screen nonetheless. It's important to note that failing to cast a spell still uses up Magicka and performs a spellcasting animation. Weirdly, Willpower also increases your resistance to Paralyze and Silence magic. And finally, as we covered in Derived Stats, Willpower also increases your maximum fatigue. Fourth on our list of primary attributes is Agility. Similar to Willpower, Agility is critical to the success of characters who rely on weapons in combat. To reiterate, this includes ranged weapons like crossbows. In addition to their respective weapon skill, luck, and fatigue levels, Agility affects your chance to land outgoing weapon attacks and your chance to evade incoming weapon attacks. A character's chance to hit with a weapon is equal to the difference between the attacker's hit rate and the victim's evasion. Although a bit lengthy, I'll have both the evasion and hit rate formulae on screen if you're interested. Worth noting that evasion also takes into account any sanctuary spell effects you may have active. Hit rate works similarly by also taking into account any fortify attack spells you may have. It's worth pointing out that if you aren't using the unofficial Morrowind code patch, that there's a bug that improves weapon hit rates for characters that are under blind effects. Anyways, Agility also helps your character resist being staggered by attacks, and improves success with sneaking, pickpocketing, lockpicking, blocking, and jumping. And finally, as we covered previously, Agility also contributes to your max fatigue. The fifth primary attribute is Speed. It's very straightforward in that it simply increases the movement speed of your character. Low speed can get pretty annoying, what with how fast travel works in Morrowind. So consider taking the Steed birth sign if you think that's something that's going to bug you. And lastly, keep in mind that Encumbrance also affects your character's movement speed, not just the attribute. Sixth on our list is Endurance. As mentioned previously, your starting health is equal to half of your endurance and half of your strength. From then on, each time you level up, 10% of your base endurance is gained as health. There's a few caveats to this. Those are, decimal values are never rounded up, but are instead added towards future health increases. Health gained per level up is not retroactive. Increasing your base endurance as you level does increase the health gained on that same level. Only your base endurance is taken into account for health gains. So, fortify endurance spells and effects are kind of worthless in this regard. Lastly, as mentioned before, Endurance contributes to your maximum fatigue. 7th on the list of primary attributes is personality. Every 2 points of the personality attribute will raise the base disposition of all NPCs by 1. In addition to speechcraft, luck, and fatigue levels, personality improves your success rates when persuading NPCs through admiring, intimidating, taunting, bribery. Similarly, personality also improves your success rates when haggling prices with mercantile. The very last attribute is luck. Luck has an effect on nearly every dice roll action your character performs in the entire game. This can be useful for spellcaster characters attempting to use spells that normally would have a 0% or less chance of being cast. Luck can increase this chance. It's important to note that when leveling a character, luck can only ever be increased by 1 every level, as it governs no skills, so it will never get a multiplier. Finally, it's worth noting that luck has 0 impact on any randomly generated loot. Well, that should be everything. I've also got a playthrough going of Morrowind if that interests you. Good to listen to if you're playing the game, there's not much audio in the game, so, good background noise. Anyways, sorry. Don't forget, timestamps are in the description.